Hi there, I'm Trevor and welcome to TH Training Painting. In this video and another of my Battlefield Basics videos, I'm going to be showing you how to make these really easy little cottages. Okay, these will look great on any tabletop you want to use, either be fantasy or the historical stuff. Okay, the wee cottages I'm using are plain timbers with a sort of rendered wall effect going on, and for this project I'm going to use a tutorial file which you can find on my website at thtrain.com/downloads. I'll put a link to it in the description below so you can easily access the file. And in the file you'll find there's two versions of the house. There's this one, the chimney to the side, this one, the chimney to the back, and also you also have a version where the chimney is removable and we have a playable interior for you. So I hope you enjoy this video. I'm going to go grab my tools and we'll get to work. Yes, I'm interrupting my own video. When I was editing this video, I realised it was going to be way too long. It was coming in at over 40 minutes, which I felt was just way too long for this type of video. So what I've done is I've cut it into two parts. The first part, which is this one here, is all about the construction of the small cottages, and then the second part will be about the painting of the cottages. I'll have a link to the second part somewhere around here hopefully, which you can jump to, and I'll put a link at the end of the video as well. So I'll let you get back to this construction video and I hope you enjoy it. The tools and materials I'm going to need are a printout of the template file, 5mm foam board, a sharp craft knife, a steel ruler, a pencil, sanding blocks, multi-purpose filler, spray adhesive, PVA glue, and last but not least, some paint and some paint brushes. To start this project, I have printed out these pages of my template onto some regular paper and I'll be gluing them onto foam board. I'll be using 5mm thick foam board for the main structure of the cottages, and I'll use some spray adhesive to stick the printouts onto the foam board. I'll now go stick the paper onto the foam board, making sure I spray in a well ventilated area. Here's my foam board sheets with the template stuck onto them, and now I'm ready to cut out all the pieces. Before I do that, I just wanted to show you these areas on the printouts. The blue lines on the template are optional cutting lines, so you don't have to cut them all out. Like this area here represents the fireplace in the cottage, and these shapes here, which are the windows, don't need to be cut out, and you can choose which ones to cut out. Taking my steel rule and craft knife, it's time to cut out all these pieces. Using the black lines as the guide, I'll line my ruler with them and then cut out the foam board. When cutting foam board, it is best to make several light cuts instead of trying to cut through all in one go. And remember, always take care when using sharp tools. Before I continue cutting out the foam board, I just want to talk about my craft knife. Earlier in the video, I was using an inexpensive craft knife, which may be okay for a small amount of work. But if you're going to be serious about making terrain or other crafts, I really recommend you investing in a good craft knife. This knife of mine has been in use for many years and is still going strong. I just add some new blades when needed and continue working. A good craft knife shouldn't cost you more than £10 and will hopefully last you years, so it is a good investment for your hobby. So I'll get back to cutting out these pieces. That's all the pieces cut from my foam board, but I haven't cut out the optional areas yet. I have these areas here which represent the windows, and I have the choice of whether or not I want to cut them out. The other optional area is this here, which is the fireplace, and it only really applies to models that will have a removable roof. This piece also has a green guideline on it, and this will help me align the two pieces that will create the chimney of my cottage. The other pieces I want to mention are these triangles, which are used in making the removable roof. They can be ignored altogether if your roof is going to be just attached to the model. Before I cut out the other cottages, I just want to show you the fireplace. As you can see, I've cut out the optional areas. So for the fireplace, I've just cut out this little square area, and when I place the chimney aligned with the guidelines, you can see it creates this little nice inlaid area which makes the fireplace of the cottage. Now I'll just get started on cutting out the other pieces of the cottage model. That's all the pieces of the cottage cut out. Now it's time to start gluing together all the pieces of my cottage. Grabbing my PVA glue and a paintbrush, I'll start sticking the walls together. I'll brush some glue onto the chimney and stick it onto this wall section. Before sticking the walls together, it's important to note the angle of the roof, and I must glue the wall into its side, because if I don't, I'll end up with this really awkward angle and the roof will not rest correctly against the walls. And this is really important for either models, so it's either the model with the removable roof or the attached roof. Glue it all together like this and the roof will have no problem sitting on the wall sections. I'll glue these together to make a right angle and I'll leave them to dry. And now I'll stick all the other wall sections together, making sure my angles are good. Also, when making a cottage with the wall section like this, you can decide whether or not to have the door on the left side or the right side of the cottage. With this wall section, I have cut the window out, the wider area of the bottom and the thinner part is to the top. I can also choose which side I want the window on, just like the door. So I'll glue them together and leave them to dry. And then once dry, I'll stick them all together to create the basic shape of the cottage. While I'm waiting for the glue and the walls to dry, I'm going to make the roof for the cottages. First up, I want to mention the triangles I cut out of the foam board. These pieces are used for the removable roof and help support the roof shape. If you decide to attach the roof to the walls of your building, you don't need to worry about these and you can ignore them. For this tutorial, I'm going to be making a cottage with an attached roof and one with a removable roof. To make the roof, I'll be using this page from the template, printed out onto some heavyweight paper. I'm actually using a 250 GSM paper, and I would recommend at least using about 150 GSM for your printout. With my printout, I'll be using these two pieces here for the roof shape. You should notice that each of these pieces has little notches in them, and this is to help you line them up with the chimneys of the cottages, allowing the roof to sit neatly on the model. When cutting these out, I use the solid black lines as a cutting guide. The black dotted line is for the fold of the roof, and the green lines are just guides for the alignment of the roof tiles. Speaking of the roof tiles, I have a second sheet printed out again on 250 GSM paper, which has the roof tiles on it, and I'll talk about them in more detail when I get around to cutting them out. I'll cut out the roof sections, again using the black solid lines as a cutting guide, and remember to cut the notch out to fit around the chimney. And the last thing I do is score the dashed black line to create the fold. To score the paper, I just line up my ruler and using my knife, I apply a slight amount of pressure whilst following the dashed line to create a score in the paper, which will allow me to make a fold, but making sure not to cut through to the paper. With the roof pieces now all cut out, I can fold it to create the apex of the roof. As I said earlier, I'm going to make one of my roofs removable, and to make that I'm going to have to use these foam triangles that I cut out previously. The triangles will help keep the shape of the roof and also offer support. I'll glue the supports onto the roof piece, leaving some space at either end to make room for the walls of my cottage. Taking my printout of the roof tiles, I'm now going to cut them out, but before I do that, I quickly want to explain the pieces on the sheet. These rectangles to the left and right are for the top of the roof, and they have a wee score line on them to help with the folding so it can be set onto the top of the roof. And the rest of the pieces are cut out to create the roof tiles. However, there is a green line on the template which is used when gluing the roof tiles together, but I'll talk about that in a moment. These pieces are all cut out in strips, again following the black guidelines, and do not cut the green line. With the tile pieces cut out, I'll just show you how they go together and what the green lines are for. On the roof piece there are also these green lines, and they are to help you line up the tile strips onto the roof. Working from the bottom, align your first strip with the green line and with the next strip being glued on top of it. I'm repeating this all the way up to the top of the roof. You'll notice there are two types of roof tiles. One starts with a narrow tile on each side and the other has wider tiles. This is used to create the alternating pattern of tiles you'd see on a roof. The short black lines can be cut to make some spacing between the roof tiles. I'll just take some scissors and cut out these little black lines, being careful not to cut the tile strip in half. You can also snip a little bit off a tile to create some variance in the roof. I'll just finish up cutting these tiles. With all the roof tiles cut out, I'm now ready to glue them. First, I'll paint a thin layer of PVA glue onto one side of the roof. It's best to work on one side at a time. I'll add my first tile strip, making sure to line it up with the green guideline. There's the first strip added. I'll just add some glue to the top of this strip just above the green guideline to help the next piece affix to it. Because I started with the strip with the wider tiles at the end, I'll take the other type of roof tile strip with the narrow tiles and attach that to the roof. The top of the strip should align with the green line on the roof, whilst the bottom should align with the green line on the previous tile strip. Making sure to work from the bottom of the roof to the top to get that desired overlap. That's one side of the roof completed. I'll just go through the same process on the other side. That's all the tile strips glued into place. The final piece of the roof is this little folded rectangle which is placed on top. Making sure the top piece is folded at about 90 degrees, I'll add some glue to the inside of the fold and gently press it onto the top of the roof. That's the roof complete, which I'll leave to dry. Once dry, I can cut out this little area to allow the roof to fit snugly around the chimney. The glue is now dry and now I have the basic shape of my cottages, which I think are looking good so far. But I'm going to make them look even better by adding some extra details to the cottages. These details are going to be some timber framing, windows and doors. And for that I'm going to use another page for my template, print it onto some sturdy paper. I'd recommend about 150 GSM. The page has lots of pieces to cut out. The first item I can cut out is the wooden door. This is the main part here and these are the planks. Then there are the windows, of which there are two styles. This is the glass piece and these are the frames. There is a large single frame and there's this frame with 4 smaller windows. All these rectangle pieces here can be used to create the wooden framing for the cottage. I'll start by cutting out some of these pieces so I can glue them together. With my metal ruler and craft knife, it's time to get cutting. With all the pieces I want cut out, it's now time to make some windows. The windows have 3 pieces, the glass pane and the 2 frames. As I said before, there's 2 styles of windows. I'll just glue all the pieces together and then when dry, I'll put them into the holes of the cottage walls. And for the cottage that will have the roof attached, I don't have to worry about making window frames for the interior as they'll not be seen. But for the cottage with the removable roof, I'll want to make sure that the window frames are in the interior and the exterior. Gluing together is very straightforward, just using PVA glue and a brush with a small point. I'll just add the glue to the frame, press it onto the glass pane, and I'll do that then with all the others. These windows are for the cottage with the roof attached, so I don't need to worry about adding the frames to both sides. But these frames are for the cottage with the removable roof, so I have to remember to put both frames on. Well, While the glue on the windows is drying, I'm going to make the doors for my cottages. The doors are made using these 4 pieces. This is the main piece of the door, of which all the other pieces are glued onto. These are the vertical wooden planks, and these are the support planks. Taking a pair of sharp scissors, I'm going to cut the pieces into strips using the black line as a guide. I could use my craft knife on these, but using the scissors can make a rougher cut, which I think will look better and make the cottages look a bit more rustic. And just like the windows, if the roof of the cottage is going to be attached, I only have to do the pieces on the outside of the door. I don't need to worry about the interior. These shorter pieces will be the horizontal support planks for the top and bottom of my door. With some glue and a paintbrush, I'll add some glue to the main piece and then add the vertical planks using the longer strips I cut out. When laying out these planks, I can easily create some space in between them, although this will make them overhang slightly. As you can hopefully see, the door I'm working on will actually be too big to fit in the cottage, but this is not a problem as I can easily trim them once the glue is dry. For the shorter planks, I'll add some glue to them and they'll go just here near the top and bottom of the door. Here I go, one side of the door completed. I'll just finish making the other door and then leave them all to dry. I'm now going to work with these pieces and they're used to create planks similar to the door that are used to create the wooden framing for my cottages. These pieces are the same height as the wall and when cut out they can be glued in place and they'll create the framing I'm looking for. The longer piece is used on this wall if you want to create some taller vertical framing or used as a diagonal piece here. They're just a little bit longer so you can use them in different ways in the models. Again, using some scissors, I'll cut out the strips ready for gluing onto the cottage. With the strips cut out, I'll grab some glue and a paintbrush. I'll add some glue to the areas where I want the strips to be added, not worrying about the strips that overhang the model as it can easily be trimmed once the glue is dry. With the glue on, I'll add the strips and leave them to dry. I'll just add some more strips around the door, the window and the other corner. When the glue is drying in these pieces, I'll add some strips around the window and the top of the doorway. The next area I'll add strips to is the wall in which the roof rests on, and I'll use the longer strips for this. I'll set the strip onto the wall, aligning it with the wall and the strip I already have in place, and with a pencil I'll mark a line where the two strips overlap and then mark another small vertical line at the top of the wall. Then, using some scissors, I'll trim away the strips using the lines I made as a guide. Add some glue and attach the strip to the wall. Then I'll add the rest of the strips. That's the strips added to the wall. I can also add more strips to the wall to create even more timbers if I wish to. But for the moment, I'm going to add some strips to the window and the door, and I can hopefully use some of the offcuts from my other strips I've already added. Just like before, I'll set the strip in place, mark a cutting line with a pencil, trim them, add some glue and press them into place. I finished adding the strips to my cottage, including this diagonal timber here to make the model look a bit more interesting. I've also added some more details to the wall. When making your own models, you can decide how much detailing you want to add to your cottage. But for the areas where I haven't added any wooden timbers, I want to add some texture to them, and the easiest way to do this is by using some multi-purpose filler. The filler straight out of the tub is too thick to use and would be very difficult to work with, so I'm going to have to thin it out a bit. Use a container, I'm going to add some of the filler and then thin it out with some water, because the filler can actually be diluted with a little bit of water. And then I can simply paint it onto my walls. Adding the filler, I'll then add some water and give it a mix. Also, don't use your best paintbrush for this, because it will wreck the brushes. Try and get some cheap brushes from your local discount store if you can. I'm looking to try and get sort of a creamy consistency from my mixture, and once ready, I'll just use my brush and paint the texture onto the walls. If you're making a cottage with a removable roof, then you may want to add some of the texture to the internal walls as well. I'm also going to add some texture mix around the doors and the windows, and this will help hide the texture of the foam board I used to make the walls. Quick tip, when making your own cottage, you can add some paint to your texture mix as well if you want. This will help you see where you've added texture to, and you'll not be painting white onto white. On the cottage with a removable roof, you may have to add some texture onto these areas at the top of the walls so they'll not be seen as well. But if you're gluing the roof on, you don't have to worry about hiding the texture of the foam board. Time to make the roof for this cottage. This is the cottage with the roof attached, and the roof piece does not need to have the supports glued into it. To start, I'll add some PVA glue to the areas where the roof will attach to it, then I'll gently press the roof piece into place. When the glue is dry, I'll be able to add the roof tiles just like I did with the removable roof. Quick tip. When making the roof of the cottage with the chimney on the longer wall, I recommend when starting to add the roof tile strips that you start with the strip that has the narrow tiles at either end. Because when I lay the piece on the roof here, you can hopefully see that the middle tile is roughly the same width as the chimney. So I'll cut out that middle tile and then lay the pieces left and right of the chimney, and for the next row of tiles I may have to cut a little bit out of the middle again just so it'll wrap around the chimney correctly. That's the roof of both cottages done. I have the attached roof here, and I also have the cottage with the removable roof, which has the usable interior for my games. What I want to do now is sand away any areas where the filler is maybe a little bit too thick, say around the doors and the window. I could also sand the texture on the walls if I feel that they need it as well. I'm going to use a sponge sanding block. I've cut a narrow strip off my block, and this will allow me to easily sand inside of the doors and the windows. Making sure my workspace is covered as sanding will create some dust that will need to be cleared away. I'm going to start giving my cottages a gentle sanding. Final construction phase now, and this is where I attach the doors and windows I made earlier to the cottages. For the cottage with the attached roof, I only need the pieces that are single sided, so no wooden planks on the inside of the door and no window frame on the inside of the window. And for the cottage with the removable roof, I'll be using the pieces that are double sided. You can see that the pieces are maybe too big to fit into the walls, but this is an easy fix with some scissors. I'll simply cut off some thin strips from each side of the door piece and check to see if it fits. I'm only cutting thin strips off because I don't want to cut off too much at this point, as it'll be very difficult to repair if I make the piece too narrow to fit neatly into the wall. So I'll keep trimming and checking the fit of the pieces. That's the door fitting in nicely. I'll just have to trim the bottom of the door and that'll be it ready to glue in place. The windows are attached in the same way as the door. I'll check to see if the window fits into the wall, and if it does not, then I'll just trim it to make it fit. That's the window now fitting into the wall nicely, so I'll do the fit of the other window for this cottage. That's the doors and windows fitting into the cottage. I'll add some PVA glue to the edges of the piece and then slot them into place. Now I'll do the exact same thing, the doors and windows on this cottage, and then leave them all to dry. And I'm back again. So that's the construction all done. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, hopefully you've learned something. If you want to see how I painted the cottages, just check out the link here.